Hello, I'm with Jeff Gothelf. We are at UX Poland 2016 and we are at Copernicus Science Center. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, it's great to be here.
I'm very happy that you came and I'm really excited about the speech you just gave. And I want to ask you some more questions about the things that are important to us and that we keep talking about at this edition of UX Poland.
Okay.
Our subject is responsibility in design, and I'm really curious what that means to you.
Sure. You know, while the material that I talk about doesn't necessarily directly address designing responsibly in the sense of building products that make people successful or relieve some kind of pain or struggle in the world, the material that I talk about focuses on ensuring that we are doing the best work that we can with in solving real problems. So I think when it comes to thinking about things from a lean UX perspective, the responsibility in design comes through as making sure that we are solving real problems for real customers or real users in a way that they would actually value, as opposed to doing things that just look good or feel good but don't actually do real work. And so I think designing responsibly, at least in this context, just means making sure that the work that we're doing has the impact that we hope that it will have.
Okay, you said about not just doing things that will feel good. I wonder if you can tell me about something that feels good, so, well, say is well designed, but actually doesn't have all that good impact.
Yeah, one of the interesting stories that I read about in the last couple of weeks came out of Nest. So Nest is Tony Fadell's company, now owned by Google, where they make fancy thermostats and smoke detectors and really well-designed household objects that were seemingly mundane. There was a story this week where Nest makes this hub for your house that connects all the things of the Internet of things in your house to one central hub where you can control it. And for some reason, and I don't know why, they've decided to discontinue.
Yeah, I read that story.
But it's not just discontinue and stop supporting, they killed the device.
And actually, I heard they also, the license for the Nest actually says that you cannot use any third-party software on it.
Right, so which brings up a really interesting question. I just paid you $300 for a piece of plastic that doesn't do anything anymore.
No.
Do I own it? If I paid you $300, do I own it? Do you have the right to not only to stop supporting it? That's your right as an organization, but to kill the device remotely so that I can never go back and use it again or install third-party software on it seems to me to be a very poor decision, a bad user experience, and brings up really interesting questions. Is what do we actually own when it comes to these to connected things anymore? What do we actually, what is actually ours? And that just because something is beautiful, well designed, comes from a company that we respect, we don't have a sense of the impact that has on the usage of that thing, the ownership, which is fascinating to me.
It's a very scary signal, definitely.
Absolutely.
And I wonder how they will cover up the aftertaste that it leaves, because the damage is still ahead of us. I think they are bricking all those nests in May or something like that. Well, that's gonna be
an expensive
tough.
brick.
Yeah. Tell me, Internet of Things is kind of getting on the wave, and it's becoming more and more common. More things, not just the Internet of Things, but like wearables, virtual reality, self-driving cars. I mean, those things become buzzwords, and we keep hearing more and more of them before we even came in contact with them. What do you think will thrive? What's going to be the new big thing?
There's a lot of really interesting things, and it's tough to predict. But the thing that I'm interested in and paying attention to closely is self-driving cars. I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity They're to improve society as a whole, to reduce, I mean, in the US, we have tens of thousands of deaths on the roads every year. There's an opportunity to reduce that. I mean, just this last week, there was a convoy of 7 trucks that drove itself across Europe. This week, trucks, not cars, right? So tremendous logistical improvements that could happen. Yes, it will cause disruption in certain industries, and yes, some people who currently do, truck drivers, for example, will have to figure out what this means for them in this new world. But the opportunity to reduce the dependency on, conscious driving, for example, right? I mean, if you've ever sat in a traffic jam, driverless cars starts to become a really interesting concept. So for me, just coming from a place where public transportation is not nearly as good as it is in Europe and in Asia, the concept of, and there's no prospect of improving that anytime soon, the prospect of making the driving experience more productive, less dangerous, more predictable is a really interesting thing to me. And that's just part of the Internet of Things, right? But to me, that's one of the most exciting things.
Okay, I'm actually really curious about it because I think it would also, I mean, I expect it also to translate it into lack of the ownership, like just turn the car into another service.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that becomes really interesting, right? Does car ownership go away? And to be further clear, I was a firm believer in that, and then I gave Elon Musk $1,000 2 weeks ago to save my Model 3. So we'll see how it goes. But that car drives itself, so I'm good with it.
Yeah, we're just gonna put our smartphone in, like a terminal in, and it will become our car
for an hour.
For an hour, exactly.
Yeah.
You said that public transportation is like virtually non-existent where you are, with
I said it wasn't good.
Some noble exceptions.
Yes.
And that it has an impact on the future of self-driving cars, or the difference they can make.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about some other things that you would say that are different where you are, located in New York, than from other like main hubs, main places where UX avant-garde is moving onwards? Like cultural differences, technological differences.
So there's a heavy startup culture in New York. Right? So there's several startup hubs in the United States. There's a heavy startup culture in New York. And really, I think more importantly, there's a heavy entrepreneurial culture in New York. And what the result of that is, you're seeing, it's a different culture than in San Francisco, for example, or even slightly different than Boston as well. But what you're seeing in New York is folks genuinely interested in solving increasingly bigger problems and using design to solve those problems. So as opposed to trying to figure out who can do my laundry for me, or who can walk my dog while I'm at work, the problems that I see being solved by some of the startups in New York are significantly more impactful. Like, how do we improve education? How do we improve healthcare? How do we make even financial services more accessible to people? And design is leading the charge in all of those practices. So you're seeing designers either founding those companies or in leading positions inside larger organizations driving that. And that's not something that I see when I travel around the world as much, with design being in that leadership position as much. And so I think that's, I'm not going to say that's unique to New York, but it's definitely something that I see in that culture and in that ecosystem consistently. Okay.
In your talk, or actually during the Q&A after your talk, you mentioned that it's vital to have someone in a position of power in company who will help to introduce the lean model and to actually make it work.
Yeah.
How would you recommend a person from a designer position, non-decisive, more creative, how would you recommend them to create a supportive environment for lean process.
So they need to create interest in this way of working. So if it doesn't exist in the company, they need to start having these conversations, I think, locally within the design team or within their project team first, and then to expand that out. And there are various ways of doing that. I mean, I've seen organizations where they have a monthly book club, right? Simple, right? Low commitment, no one's obligated to be there, but hey, this month we're reading Lean Startup. Next week we're going to read Lean UX. The week after that we'll read 4 Steps to the Epiphany, whatever it is, right? Whatever book you want to read, but it starts to have a much broader conversation, and it starts to extract from the organization the people who are already interested in this. So they may not be the managers, but if you can show that there are people across departments and across disciplines interested in this, that starts to make that evident. The next thing you can do is simply to start asking and saying, hey, remember that the stakeholder for a project. Remember that last time we worked on something like this? We spent 6 months defining the thing, a year building it, we shipped it, and then we shut it down 6 months after we shipped it. Let's not do that again next time. Maybe we could try something different. Instead of 18 months or 24 months of work, let's give us a month. Give me an engineer, give me a product manager, give me a designer, give me a month, and let us figure out exactly what we should work on, and this way we can plan the roadmap better. But the trick is to take small steps. I think that if you try to, especially coming from a position where you don't have the kind of influence or large influence on an organization, to come and say, we need to change everything. The way that we work, the way that we staff, the way that we reward people, you're never going to get anywhere. But small steps, saying, look, let's do a book club, give me a month, give me a week with these 3 guys, or these 3 people.
Let's see what comes out.
Let's see what comes out of it. Things like that, it starts to go, it starts to be more effective. And the last bit of advice I would say is to ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So I'd say, look, for this next project or for this next sprint, we're going to do a collaborative sketching exercise. So that means engineers are going to sketch, product managers are going to sketch, business analysts, QA, design. We're going to do it together in one room for 2 hours. Don't ask for permission. Just schedule the meeting, and then run it really effectively and show the benefits of that. But any little thing that you can do to illustrate why this is a good way to work should, in theory, drive interest in the organization.
Okay. Speaking of book clubs, I heard you are advancing in that front.
I'm contributing to the material that book clubs can choose from. So,
that's interesting.
Slowly but surely. Yes.
Can you please elaborate a little on that?
So actually, because Josh Seiden, my co-author, and I have endless amounts of free time, we've decided we don't do anything except sit around and think about what books we can write together. We're actually writing 2 new books this year, and so so the short description is there will be a 2nd edition of Lean UX done at the end of this year, which is really exciting. The last book was finished 4 years ago. It's been out for about 3.5 years, but it's been finished for 4 years, and so in many ways, related to the talk, almost everything that we've learned about Lean UX in the last 5 years is what's going into the 2nd edition of Lean UX. So that's really exciting. There's going to be a 2nd edition of Lean UX, and 50 to 75% more stuff in it, updated and new stuff. So a lot of new material in there. So super excited about that. I'm even more excited about the business book that Josh and I have written. It's called Sense and Respond. And it directly addresses the conversation that we just had that says, okay, designers really want to work this way, but they keep running into organizational challenges and leadership and management that don't want to work this way. So Josh and I wrote a book for managers that says, look, software has eaten the world. How do you leverage technology to build continuously learning organizations? And what does that mean for staffing, for finance, for planning, for budgeting, for engineering, for product management, for design? How do you build a company that takes advantage of technology and builds continuous learning and continuous conversations into the way that they work? And so, it's not a design book. It's an absolute business book. It's filled with an amazing variety of case studies. We did a ton of research to dig for companies that are using technology to listen to their customers and to build amazing products. Everything from giants like GE to a small company in Ohio in the United States that that breeds cows.
Okay,
Right.
that's really broad spectrum.
Really broad spectrum, but so the book is called Sense and Respond. Again, it'll be out at the end of the year, probably around the same time as the second edition of Lean UX. And we built a website for the book, senseandrespond.co. So if you go to senseandrespond.co, you can sign up for a mailing list, learn a bit more about it, and we'll send you an email when the book comes out.
Well, I hope to get my hands on it soon.
Me too.
And
too.
improve the
Actually.
conversations that
Yeah.
that I'm actually having with
Give
all
it
the
to your boss.
stakeholders.
That's the key. Give it to your managers. Give it to your executives. That was the whole point of it is that to get this book into the hands of leadership. And we're publishing with Harvard Business Press, so that's the channel. We really want to get that into the people who read Harvard Business Review. That's our target audience for this.
Okay, that sounds interesting, and I really hope that it will get broad audience in Poland, because I think this is the next thing we need to optimize here to get this process-oriented thinking in managers, in decision makers, because I think we don't need to be shy about our designers and our experts. We just need them to get more applications at work.
Yeah, look, and you're not alone, right? I mean, it's not a uniquely Polish problem. I mean, it's everywhere I go. It's an issue. It's an issue in the U.S. It's certainly an issue in Asia and throughout Europe in my visits. Certainly, there are some companies that are more advanced, but it's a global issue, and eventually we will move on. It's just going to take a few more years.
Okay, thank you very much, Jeff.
My pleasure. Thanks so
Thank
much
you,
for being
guys,
here.
and stay tuned.